and I will call the public hearing at the Town Hall on August 3rd, 2022 to order, and I'll just read the call. Notice is hereby given of a public hearing to be held by the East Lyme Board of Selectmen on Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022 at the East Lyme Town Hall at 108 Pennsylvania Avenue, Niantic, Connecticut, beginning at 7 p.m. to receive comments regarding amendments to the following ordinance entitled Ordinance Regulating the Storage, Collection, and Disposal of Solid Waste. Said ordinance proposes amendments to Chapter 51, Ordinance Regulating the Storage, Collection, and Disposal of Solid Waste, which was last amended by the East Lyme Board of Selectmen on June 3rd, 2020. And copies of the ordinance collection and solid waste disposal with the proposed amendments redlined are available for the review in the East Lyme Town Clerk's office and on the East Lyme website, www.eastlymetownhall.com, and interested persons are invited to attend and be heard. Is there anyone that would like to speak? If you do, please come up to the podium, and we ask that you speak for no more than 5 minutes, and if someone else has the exact same thing that you're bringing forward, you can just go up and say, I agree with that person too. And we really can't respond to you right then, but when it's completed, we will respond to your comments. Anyone that'd like to be heard? Yes, sir, please. Your name and address, please.
Okay, Tom Nebel.
No, once you get up to the...
When I get here. Tom Nebel, 6 Mulberry Lane, Niantic. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, I applaud the town for trying to save money and to define what's needed for town collection safety and efficiency. But there were some concerns that I saw in what was proposed. And one of which is the hold harmless agreement. Having an agreement written to gain access, I can sort of understand why that would be there. But to hold harmless against any kind of damage up to and including death sort of raised my attention a little bit and is not something that I can understand. So if you have reasons and you said later someone or in the future someone from legal will explain why.
Yes.
And how that is. Laying out exactly what is needed in paved roads and all is a good idea. It's nice to have those down in writing, and we've worked good with the town over, at least since I've been there in 2004. The trucks have changed in size and scope and everything, and we've had trees and curbs and shrubs damaged. We just fix them because we want to work with the town to make that better. But when you get down to hold harmless for damage to someone's life and limb, that's something different. So we're concerned about that. So writing, having to sign such an agreement just does not seem right unless that's true for everyone in the town. And I don't know that. Lastly, I have a personal concern for new people or new developments coming in that are built just like ours as to why they would not get service. If their mill rate and taxes are the same, adjust. You're getting money in the town for all of that. So why would new homes like Chapman Woods, if a development went in like that and it had good roads to whatever your standards are, have a process by which you inspect it and say, yes, this meets what we need, even if it's a private road for trash pickup. But to make them second-class citizens in the future just doesn't seem right.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Anyone else like to speak? Yes, ma'am, right next to him.
Martha Goodlow, 4 Carlisle Lane in Niantic. I'm president of Chapman Woods. I agree with Tom that most of the conditions in the new section are reasonable, and we're happy with them, but the hold harmless is the problem. I'm a retired lawyer. I know how to read hold harmless agreements, and this one makes us responsible for negligence caused by a town employee. So I'm saying that we could not sign a hold harmless in its present form, and we would certainly have our attorneys review it before we agreed to sign it. So again, that is our main complaint. We are happy with the service we've received over the past 20 years. We have good relationships with the drivers. We have no complaints, and there have been no major incidents, and we've always been willing to repair minor damage that was caused by the trucks. But we cannot sign an agreement that would make us responsible for the negligence of town employees.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard? Mr. Bergar, our Public Works Director, is here. Joe, would you not the legal part? That's obviously for us to. Oh no, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is Joe Bergar. I live in 19 Adawan Ave. I'm the Director of Public Works, and I'll try to spin this way because I'm more talking to you people. The reason we did this, something was said in here. It was last revised in 2020. There was a very small section revised in 20, just so you know. The rest of this is a very old document. There's a lot of things in there, and I do appreciate you saying that the intention is all good. And the beautiful thing about making it an ordinance is because we get the biggest calls, like the police department, their biggest call is speeding. Our biggest calls is garbage, everything about garbage, everything that wasn't picked up and so that. So we're trying to have a document. We give a response, and sometimes people don't like the response. This board that you guys elect, I work for this, so they're the ones that should be telling me how to do it, not us making it up. So just to let you know, the reason we're doing this is to go through these people to go. So if, there was provisions for containers, requirements for collection, the private roads, which I'm glad you looked at, updating recycling, because recycling is more important than ever. The recycling plants are turning away our recycling now. It's devaluing the recycling. We have can inspections. Then people want to know why we tagged it. They get mad at us. It's part of the ordinance. And then the last is commercial haulers. So my point is I think everything is in there. The town, we have one association that already had an agreement, and that provision in there, the hold harmless, was in there from our town council. The town council works for these guys, so they could be looking at this for the Board of Selectmen to make any changes to protect the town, but also in fairness to the thing. So if that has to be changed, it shouldn't take away the intent of this, and I'm sure it's something that you have the two attorneys on your board here that get
Three.
I'm sorry, three.
I
was looking over here, but three.
I'm the only non-attorney here.
Yeah.
So
You only have one that's not. But they can make that change. But this is an important document so that we're not, the Public Works Department and the Public Works Director is not setting policy, the Board of Selectmen is. So that's the major intent. I think it is because it was last done in 15, 20 years ago. I think it does reflect the year 2022 now. We do appreciate Chapman Woods, Chapman Farms. It's amazing how many locations do. But you mentioned something about the future developments. You said something about that we inspect them, and if they meet town standard. I'm not anything against your development, but does not meet town standard by any stretch of the imagination. Backing up trucks, 40-foot trucks, into little narrow things is not something we want to do. We've been doing it since the life of your association. This says we're not taking it away from you. But it's really not a situation ideal for us to be putting our drivers, especially in the winter when they plow and the roads are now even narrower, that I got a 14, 15, 16, 18-foot way that I'm backing a 40-foot truck. So that's the reasoning. And then there was also Rocky Neck Village. There was a few other, that's the Sound. All these places are totally set up to have dumpsters. That's what they should have, dumpsters. So they're not second-class citizens. It's just in most towns, that's how it is. Sea spray condominiums. It says dumpsters. It should be you having dumpsters. But now people call us, I want a can. They don't like to hear that. And then they call the first selectman who tells me, why am I not giving them a can? Because you have a dumpster. That's the way it was set up. So this is trying, and it will save the rest of the town money. We're not trying to pick and choose. We're trying to have it in a policy that's the policy of town that was approved by this board, so that we're not picking and choosing who we're giving service to. So the intention is good. I hope it was helpful discussion. We're going to have a discussion, possible action, and I hear your point about the hold harmless. I just took it exactly from the town attorneys from an agreement a year and a half ago, and if that has to change, then I'm sure then we can have it changed to the right wording. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Yes.
Come on, please.
My name is Colin Yankee, 4 Meeting House Lane, which is Chapman Farms. The point about not allowing new private roads to get service, especially with over 55 communities. We don't use a lot of services in this town. We don't use education. And to turn around, in a lot of states and in communities, when that happens, you end up having to create separate tax districts that will reduce for seniors the taxes because they're not getting the services. And my concern is the towns may end up with a push like that. I mean, look at the response you've got from over 55 communities here tonight. I don't think you see that all the time. We're looking at it saying we don't get many services. We're not using education. We get some with the senior center and the buses, but not a lot. We're providing for ourselves. We pay taxes for 60 plus, in some individuals, more years. We expect better when it comes to, and maybe the ordinance needs to have something in it about over 55 communities. And that's my statement. Sorry.
Thank you. And don't be sorry, we appreciate your comments. Anyone else like to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Wykoff. I'm a new owner in Chapman Woods. And I'd just like to endorse what the previous gentleman said. I moved here from Old Lyme. I'm already paying higher taxes, which I learned on July 29th. And I thought about the amount of town services that I use, and it's almost none because I pay for the water. I haven't explored the downtown yet, but in terms of my living at my age, which is, what am I? Almost 70. I'm not a big consumer in this town. And I agree with him. We pay taxes to support the school system. We are all for having the community well run and not spending money excessively. But I think it's inappropriate to try to save money when it involves your senior citizens. This is like a basic service. And I'll tell you something, I would have a hard time throwing my trash in a dumpster. I would have a hard time getting it in the car, driving to the dumpster, and putting it in the dumpster. The idea is fantastic of streamlining things, making it easy for the Public Works Department. But the Public Works Department works for the citizens. So, as a community, we have an obligation to do everything just the way you want it done so that you can do your job well. But I don't think as a community, I don't think you should look to us, Chapman Woods or Chapman Farms, as a community where you should save money. Those are my thoughts, and I was very pleased when he said that. And I have not prepared these remarks. It seems obvious to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, could I have your address, ma'am?
Wykoff.
Address. I need your address.
7 Crabapple Lane.
Thank you.
I should have caught that. Anyone else like to speak? I will take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay, the public comment is over. We'll move on to our regular agenda. Would there be any concern with the board if, right now, the solid waste ordinance, which we'll discuss, is in old business, which will be a long way into the meeting, moving that up to the first item that we discuss once we get through the consent calendar and minutes approval and so forth? Okay, is there a motion to?
So moved.
Second it?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll be addressing that first once we address. Okay, we've already said the Pledge of Allegiance, and so I'll call the meeting to order. And first thing is, she's not with us tonight, but Mrs. Hardy, a 36-plus year member of the Board of Selectmen, suffered a loss. Her husband passed last week, so we send our best to her. and to her family, and wish the best for them. And remember Paul, her husband, and the family in our thoughts, if you could, because I'm sure many of you have had the pleasure of meeting Roseanne over the years. There's no additional agenda or consent calendar items. Delegations, anyone wish to speak this on any, it was just on the solid waste ordinance before. Anybody wish to speak again on something different? Okay. Approval of the regular meeting minutes of July 6th.
Move to approve the regular meeting minutes of July 6, 2022 as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any comments or corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously.
Okay.
Special meeting?
Sure. Move to approve the special meeting minutes of the Board of Selectmen of July 15, 2022 as submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent calendar for the regular meeting of August 3rd, 2022 in the amount of $13,255.20.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Okay, moving on to the solid waste ordinance. We've just heard comments from several members of the community, and I think everyone else that didn't speak is obviously here in support of that. So some points were made. Anyone like to comment on that? Dan or?
Well, I think it's important that, that we listen to the various communities in our town, and certainly there's an important showing here tonight. I'm not, without really studying the hold harmless agreement. I mean, there was a reason why it was in the proposed ordinance. I think we should review it again to see if it can be adjusted to be something that's more acceptable and that balances the risks between the town and the community that we serve. And perhaps we can look at it with that point of view. As far as other communities that want our services that are built in the future, I mean, there is a legitimate problem with the movement of the trucks, and you have bigger vehicles now that are being used to accommodate the the single stream cans. I don't know how I'm not sure what the answer is to balance those concerns. I mean, do you change, force the design of these future developments to accommodate our trucks? Is that the solution, so you can continue to maintain these services? Is there, the suggestion of 55 plus, maybe treating it differently for those communities, because it is difficult, I'm sure, at a certain point to bring the trash out to a dumpster. So, I think maybe these are things that we should take another look at to see if there's some way we can, again, balance the needs of the town and the needs of the community. That's all I have to say.
Ann or Ann?
Yeah, so I was going to say, I haven't reviewed the hold harmless clause in detail, but saying that it should up to and including death is, I think, a little overreaching, and it probably should be reviewed by town council again. And I do agree that, it should be reviewed, and there should be some more reasonable clause there. Regarding the new developments that are being made, I think that Joe Braga, as he's the director of the Public Works, was saying that it's difficult to get these trucks in and out of these places. So maybe, like Dan said, when they're building them, they should build them having in mind that they need to get these garbage trucks that are, I don't know how wide they are, in and out of these places. Because otherwise then, it's really hard to service the town if the trucks can't get in there, and to service the residents and the taxpayers. And I know that, as I say, garbage is like a huge issue. Last week, I didn't have my garbage picked up, and I was going crazy because I was having 40 people at my house, and I was like, oh my God, they're filled. So my husband took them to the dump. But it is a big issue, and I understand that. But I do think that maybe when the new developments come in, that has to be taken into account. And I don't know if sometimes these new developers want to do that. So there's a balance here that we have to really review and go over. And I think maybe also I have not reviewed the contract in detail, but I think it needs to be reviewed.
Yeah, I think Dan and Ann have made very good points. And first of all, I'd like to say I thank you all for coming and speaking up and paying attention to things that happen in town government. It's really refreshing to see these days, for sure. Yeah, I mean, looking, and you raise a good point. The language is somewhat sweeping, from our, in this section, and the section in particular, if you want to make note of it, is 51.06, Part D. It's a bit sweeping, and I think there could be a little give and take on this particular clause. From our perspective, obviously our concern is to protect the town generally. So understand that when we put forth an agreement, it's usually going to reflect that. So I think that's what you're seeing. And language that sort of comes from one agreement to another, or version A, B, and C. This is sometimes what you end up with. But good points, point taken, and we should take a closer look. As far as new developments go, I mean it's a difficult issue, and Joe Bergaw gave our Director of Public Works gave a very good presentation to us some weeks back on the concerns of the Public Works Department with respect to some of the newer developments which are already here, and obviously would not be receiving garbage collection because they have set up differently, and the roads are different, and they have the dumpsters, and they have private haulers, and this and that. So this is kind of a direction that some of these developments are going. But it's worth a conversation. It doesn't mean that we can't pass this ordinance, the way it is, and then examine that issue in greater detail as time goes on, because that would be a tremendous, conversation and detailed conversation that would have to happen, and expectation for developers to develop, roads that are perfectly suited and more like our older roads and more in more open space situations. So, but yeah, I agree with my my fellow board members here that we can take a look at that. But I see that your main concern is, of course, the indemnification clause. So we'll refer that to town council, presumably.
Okay. Agreed, the 51.6.06D on the indemnify, we'll definitely refer that back to town council and try to do make sure we do some language clarification on that too. Some good points made about paying taxes too, and the amount of services requested or required, and really good points. Some concerns that we need to address, and if we're going to look at this. This past winter, there was a new development at the end of Sleepy Hollow where they wanted us to come in and pick up the garbage, but they were still building houses. The cul-de-sac was too small for the truck to turn around. It became very difficult. They said, well, you can back into this vacant lot. Well, you put this, Joe, how much does the truck weigh? 50,000 pounds? Where a car can do that, the truck's going to be there for a while in that case. So that's something we'd have to look for to make sure that if people are going to move into it ahead of time, that the developer knows that what you're proposing is not going to allow you to have garbage pickup. And condos, the Gateway the development, Rocky Neck Village, those are condos, and the language of condos that someone mentioned to me. you know, when in your developments they're not, Spinnaker they're not too. But I think if we're going to do that, we have to make sure that access, this is, the old ordinance goes back to the days when we had the smaller trucks, 2 people on the back, 1 person driving it, they'd pick it up. That doesn't exist anymore. You know, and that, but there'll be a way, I think we should enter into a discussion and moving forward this. So you've made some very good points. I don't think we want to take action on this at all tonight. We want to refer it back to Town Council, and I'll meet with Mr. Bourgeois, and I mean, he's a lifelong resident. There's nothing he cares more about than the town and the people that live in it. So he's always tries to work to make everybody happy. Because here again, if you call up on a Friday and say, I forgot to put my garbage out this morning, I put it out now, it's 2 o'clock, he'll make sure that a truck gets there to get that garbage. So that he's very good at that. So his concern is for everyone's well-being. So anything further on the topic? Okay, we're done with that. You're welcome to spend the next hour with us, but if you'd like to, we'll take a short break, so if you'd all like to leave, that's perfectly good. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. We're back on. Okay, thank you. They've all departed except for one gentleman, so we appreciate everyone's comments and so forth. Moving back to the regular order, approve invoices, the cleanup of 278 Main Street, which is the old police building. We were able to identify a source of $1,466.40. We had a ton of items that were in the basement of that, which we had no idea how they even got in there, coming downstairs. But Joe was able to go out and enlist the services of a company to come in, and for much less, because the only way we could have done this by the police department and Public Works was to have people come in on an overtime basis, and it would have been far more expensive. But in a matter of a day and a half, they were done, cleaned up, and made it so we could utilize it as a command center for celebrating Lyme Day. So that's what that is. So I'll move over to that. So, okay, if you want to put a motion.
Move to authorize payment of invoices from H.A. Latham Moving and Storage and Calamari C&D totaling $1,466.40 for cleaning out the remaining furniture, equipment, and trash from the old police building. Source of funds, premium dollars, and forward to the Board of Finance for approval.
A second.
Is there a second? Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just have one question.
Sure.
It's a source of fund premium dollars. What does that mean?
The
exactly?
premium dollars, Anna, you want to explain the premium dollars?
It's just gets capitalized too,
Yes.
so it sounds
Yeah.
like it's specific.
So it's the premium dollars that we received when we went out to market for the bond funds for the public safety building project.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. The next one is a good, this is moving some money that we had left at contingency at the end of the fiscal year, so it gets moved over, so we didn't spend all our money, so.
Okay, so we'll
Yeah.
move to approve the carryover of the remaining balance of $58,602 in account 01-01-120-200-500, parentheses contingency, from the 2021-22 budget to the 22-23 fiscal year, and forward to the Board of Finance for their approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any comments? Good job of all department heads of saving us some money at the end of the year. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And it carries unanimously. Okay, moving on. Anna, would you like to come up and explain the retirement liability amounts? This is Anna's last meeting, by the way, so I'm going to make sure we get every possible bit of... she'll be retiring in a little less than 4 weeks.
Won't be the same.
Get you on to.
So several years back, we established this line item in the budget to help subsidize liabilities that we have for accrued leave that employees have on the book that they're entitled to be paid out for when they retire or resign. And so what we've done is we budget about $125,000 each year. And so whatever we have remaining in the prior year, we carry it over into the new year. And so you'll see at the end of 6/30/21, that liability was over $1 million. We, haven't quite established what it will be for 6/30/22. So you can see it's roughly about 25% of what that total balance is. So it's just,
Okay. Any questions for Anna on it before we make a motion? Go ahead.
Move to approve the carryover of the remaining balance of $234,140 in account 01-01-114-100-128, parentheses, retirement liability, from the 2021-22 budget to the 2022-23 fiscal year, and forward to the Board of Finance for their approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any comments? Here again, this is, there'll be many things we miss when Anna leaves, but some of these programs are things that they've done, or she's helped institute, where we make sure we move stuff ahead for the 4 years so there's not a shortfall in that. So, thank you. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Carried unanimously. The next item is Alex Close, our town engineer, has been meeting with a couple companies because there's some money available to install charging stations, electric vehicle charging stations. He's been working with some, and there's some opportunities. So this is just where he stands right now, and the fact that he would just like to, it's a discussion, and he's going to do some moving forward, but eventually it would come back to us, but he wants to bring us up to date on all he's done so far.
So for the record, Alex Close, Town Engineer, East Lyme. I apologize for not having this prepared earlier to make it into the agenda that was sent out, but I just have a few pages here that'll help you walk through what we've looked into. Just some quick background. Essentially, this was several months ago now. Eversource released a large funding initiative for Level 3, which is 3-phase, 480-volt, high-speed electric vehicle chargers, as well as Level 2, which is a standard 240, slower, still commercial grade, not something, you could get one in your house, but it's not your standard wall plug, but a little bit slower of a commercial grade charger. This money was released just as a pure incentive that Eversource had, and there's some administration with the state in terms of what chargers can be approved and so on and so forth, but the money is coming with an application directly through Eversource. So this was several months ago, and I've since been in contact with a couple of companies that are used to administering these funds. Specifically, these companies are used to administering funds and chargers for municipalities as well as commercial clients. So I've met with them and walked through the process to see what that would look like for East Lyme, because it is a pretty large sum of money. So that could potentially be available. So in front of you, you've got a site map on the first and second page. One is of our town hall, right out here in the back parking lot where we park our municipal vehicles, typically behind the probate court there. The next is the Hope Street parking lot, that section of Hope Street that is owned and maintained by the town, that parking area. And then you have the Methodist Street parking lot, which is that one-way strip of parking again in our downtown area. And then finally, the Flanders Elementary School by the recreation facilities. So just kind of continuing on this process, basically what this means is there's a lot of money that Eversource says is potentially available to install electric vehicle stations. This is kind of a no strings attached. The money's available. The town could own and install this infrastructure and be able to recoup revenue immediately. There are other programs out there that require towns to, give away electricity for a certain amount of years. This is not one of those programs. This is just free money, if you will. that Eversource says we have this much, you can apply and try to get it. It's not limited to municipalities either. Private corporations can apply for this money as well. And so on the third page, you can see a little bit more information about what a level 2 and a level 3 or DC fast charger actually means. So essentially you're talking about, if you see here, you're looking at, a level 2 charger can take a 3 to 8 hours to fully charge, because you're looking at about 25 miles an hour. That's how the chargers rate, instead of like miles per gallon. It's how long it would take to charge your battery. So it's 25 miles an hour versus a level 3, which could be, I think it's probably closer to 300, but it totally depends on the charger. But they say here up to 450 miles per hour. So a considerably faster charge, right? You're talking like a half an hour to an hour for a full charge on most current electric vehicles. And you can see as well what Eversource would cover as far as the incentives, which is a pretty much 100% of the installation cost, but only 50% of the charger itself. That's the stipulation. And lastly, you can see the amount of money that's available, $20,000 and $40,000 respectively for level 2, whether you're a baseline or underserved community. And then for a level 3 is $150,000 or $250,000 respectively. That's available for baseline or underserved. At least 3 out of the 4 I have to confirm actually with the elementary school, because one of the consultants listed it as underserved. I don't believe that's the case. I just have to confirm that. But the town hall, the Hope Street and the Methodist Street are actually in one of the census tracts that have been outlined as an underserved. There are 2 within the town of East Lyme that would qualify for this higher amount of money by census tract, versus some other towns which the entire town is actually considered an underserved community. But as I understand it, and as the consultants have explained to me, both are eligible, whether you're going by the census tract location or the town itself.
Alex,
so,
could you maybe explain how you picked the locations?
Yep, I was actually just going to take a pause before we went into the money.
Okay.
And I'll talk a little bit about the location, because I just wanted to kind of get you caught up to speed. So I'll take a pause for questions, and I'll also explain a little bit more about why we chose these locations. But I can take questions now before we get into that.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. I just missed what you said. Level 3, you said would take a half hour to an hour for a full charge.
Yeah.
And level 2, how long was that?
It could. It's again depending on the bandwidth of the vehicle and the battery size. But typically, it says here, it says 3 to 8 hours to fully charge. Again, I believe. My current understanding is that the modern electric vehicle, they're trying to get a battery reserve of about 300 miles. So if you look at 25 miles an hour for 300 miles, it's going to take you, right, like up 8 to 10 hours versus 450 miles an hour. It's going to take you considerably less time. You could charge your battery fully in under an hour. Okay. And that's, keep in mind, this is evolving in real time. Right, so the numbers and the battery capacity, and this is all changing very rapidly. But that's kind of a good current climate for what this infrastructure would look like.
How many cars could charge at one time?
So as part of this program, we would be required at each site to install 2 ports. Most chargers can be installed 1 charger with 2 heads, which would be considered 2 ports. So for right now, the plan would be to look at putting 1 charger with 2 ports in and future-proofing each site with additional conduit, so you could install more in the future, because the incentive money that is available potentially only covers 50% of the cost of the charger, and with additional chargers we'd probably exceed that limit. So that would be something that would make a little more sense to kind of put 2 ports in as a trial phase and see if people are using it and how it works. And you could certainly, the town would be able to set a rate that they think is fair. Just like a gas station, it'd be competitive, whether you want to buy from the town or go somewhere else to get your electricity. That's something that could be built in for future chargers. But at this point, we would just be putting 2 at each location.
Okay, so probably a stupid question, but when
No,
you say
no worries.
underserved, What do you mean by that?
There's a map that the state of Connecticut has specifically, that I don't know all of the factors and demographics that go into it. The extent of my knowledge is for this application. I simply went through the application, clicked on the link to the map, and the state said, here it is. Here's the facts. We think this is an underserved community, either by municipality or census, and this is not, in black and white. And I did not research that any further because I only looked at it to the extent that it would apply to this application specifically. But that information is created and maintained by the state.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions kind of before we go on a little bit? So, okay, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just so I would get the concept right. So are we paying for these and then we get a rebate back, or are they, how does the mechanics of that work?
Yep. So we would apply and get pre-approved for a certain amount of money.
To
So
borrow?
to get back as a rebate. Just to be perfectly clear, we would not be going in blind and funding this and hoping to get the money. The very first step, and actually what I'm here to discuss at the end of the day, is just buy-in to proceed with one of these companies in filling out an application, not in fact committing any kind of funds right here and now, but just seeing if we would even get the money from Eversource. That's my end goal here, bottom line up front. But Eversource would say, yes, we have approved your application up to this much money, and then we would have an understanding that we are or are not going to get the money, and then we could go forward with a contract and say, okay, we know we're going to get this much, so yes, we may have to put up the initial install cost, but we would get the rebate back. But that rebate amount would be guaranteed by Eversource before we committed any sort of funds to the venture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the net cost is, there's the charger cost, the installation, and then we get a rebate, and then there's a net amount that the town would.
Correct. So, for example, just for the sake of your question, if you look at the first company that I spoke with, the town would have to initially pay the charger cost, assuming you went with all 4 of these sites, and this is the money that we would get back that the consultant believes we would qualify for. We would pay the charger cost plus the installation cost up front, and then we would get the rebate back, and then the net cost, which is highlighted, would be after the rebate was applied.
So you're saying basically we would front the
200, the
and then
106 plus,
97,
correct.
get back 150.
Would have to be, yes,
and then
exactly.
okay, I understand.
And I don't want to hold you up for the rest, but I do.
No worries.
So, is there, are we required to have a certain number of level 2 and number 3s,
No.
level 3s, or we could mix and match?
You can mix and match. There's a little bit of a caveat, which I'll get to when I explain the sites, but no, there's no requirements. The requirement is that each site qualifies for money.
Okay.
They don't explicitly define site, but typically it would be a group of chargers that is fed by one feed would be a site. So theoretically, on the same property, you could have 2 separate groups of chargers fed by 2 separate feeds, and those would be 2 separate sites. But each site will qualify for the rebate if it has a charger with 2 ports on it, 2 or more ports on it, whether that's level 3 or level 2. So we're looking here in this package at 4 separate sites, which means it applies 4 separate times, 4 separate applications, and 4 separate rebates.
Gotcha. And then, go ahead.
The town, the state was the one who gave you these locations then?
No. So the locations were determined in conjunction with the engineering department, Public Works, and the first Selectmen, and we just looked at what would be some practical applications in terms of town-owned property, that kind of being critical, right? We would not want to install these on property that the town doesn't own, because we would, once it's installed, it's not leased or anything, we will completely own this infrastructure. There is around $1,000 annual fee to actually run the software that allows you to connect to the internet and bill the program, but outside of that $1,000-ish fee annually, Everything else is completely owned. Every piece of the equipment, the rate system between Eversource and the town and whoever's using the service, the customer, completely owned by the town. So we wouldn't want to have this on a piece of town property. We looked at some other locations, for example, hole in the wall, but these have to have dedicated parking spaces. And they need to have bollards, infrastructure in place to protect the chargers. There needs to be a dedicated parking space for these devices. So some of our critical, like beach locations, it would be very difficult ask, especially of Parks and Rec, who are pretty taxed already, for example, like hole in the wall, to put one of these chargers and take away a regular vehicle's parking space at this time. Something like the field services building is just not practical because of the distance away and the in and out of our trucks and things like that. So we kind of looked at the town hall and these two parking lots being kind of our central downtown hub, and the town being able to, within reason, keep an eye on things and monitor them, certainly as a pilot. And then we also spoke with Chris Lund with the schools. He met us out in the field and said he was definitely interested in this particular location near Flanders. Said he would be really interested in seeing what that looked like. And since I had already kind of done the legwork, I figured I would continue to kind of move this process along. Certainly we would involve the rest of the school board and stuff, but for now we're still in kind of we don't even know if we would qualify for the money. We have to actually make an application to get to that point. But Kevin had spoke with me and said at this point we definitely want to bring this in front of the board, and we have enough to actually present something to you folks and have this discussion. But that's sort of how those locations in particular were picked. It just seemed to be the most logical in our collective experience, as well as the most practical from a maintenance and ownership standpoint.
Alex, if I could back up just a bit on the financials, going back to the financials for a moment. Is this program with Eversource, is it federally funded in some way? Is it part of a particular program? Just wondering about the rebates and how it all, there's so many green energy programs right now, some of which, through, either new infrastructure bills or ARP or whatever. So is this an established program that they're now, putting into effect?
My understanding, this is a one and done, one time. I'm not sure exactly where Eversource is getting the money for this program. It's not to say that it couldn't be funded, and it's not to say that other funding opportunities, like for example the settlement with Volkswagen, this has just come out a couple weeks ago, and the state has been released money that they plan to. They don't have something set in stone yet, but they plan to allocate that money for electric vehicle charging. That would obviously be managed directly by the state. This application is administered directly by Eversource. Whether they got their money from some sort of incentive from the federal or state government, I'm not sure.
Because there are so many programs right now, COVID and post-COVID, energy, actually even nothing to do with COVID, but infrastructure, energy related.
Oh yes, we're monitoring many of them and doing our best to see what we have the bandwidth for and what would apply to East Lyme. And we're certainly we have a lot of initiatives that we're kind of tracking. Some of them are still very unclear and don't have applications yet, but this one is very much available. So kind of to jump into it, this money was supposed to be available until 2025. The applications have already exceeded the limit for the level 3 chargers to date. One of the consultants has informed me. So they anticipated this stretching over the next couple of years, and that's not the case. They still encourage that we apply, because many of these projects may end up falling through or not getting funded for one reason or another. Ours are not guaranteed to be funded, but again, it's just an application to put our name in and see what we can do. But the level 3 money has already been over accounted for in terms of applications, not award, just in terms of applications that they've received. The level 2 has not reached that limit yet. I don't know where they're at with that, but obviously the level 3 has a much higher threshold, and it's much more impressive from an infrastructure standpoint. It's not to say that the level 2 slower charger doesn't have its place, especially in an area like Hope Street or Methodist. We figure someone actually has something to do when they plug in their vehicle versus somewhere in a more remote location where that's not the case. It doesn't make sense. Or in a location like Town Hall or the school where the town in the future may be able to take advantage of this opportunity if they decide to go forward purchasing any kind of electric vehicles down the road or something like that, was sort of the thought process. But as of right now, the goal would be to submit an application for a mix of the level 2 and level 3, with the understanding that if all the other applications do get approved, we wouldn't even get the money, to be quite realistic with you.
Thank you.
Yep, it's just moving very fast.
So as someone buys the electricity to charge their car, does the town get a piece of that?
The town would get all of it.
Did we get all of it?
We would be charged by Eversource a rate that would be set probably annually. I can't guarantee how that relationship would work. My understanding from talking to the consultants is it's about annually. So is how frequently Eversource has been setting their rate, that they say we are going to sell you electricity for your charger at this rate, and the town would turn around and decide to sell at what rate would go to the consumer. That would be our decision to make. And again,
We would make that difference.
we would make that difference, and we would have to make an economic decision on what that would be, where we would still be competitive, because just like you go to the cheaper gas station, someone will soon be going to the cheaper charging station.
They'll be grabbing their apps all the time to see who's got the cheapest charging station.
Yep. So yeah, we would be paying the Eversource bill, but collecting 100% of the consumer fee.
Yeah, okay.
And one of the things, Alex, he was really good about when he was looking for locations too, existing poles to where we could get the
Correct.
phase 2. So you don't, because the further you'd have to stretch things or expand things, that's another thing.
Yep.
So those are things he took into
Particularly with
consideration.
the phase 3 power. If you don't already have phase 3, the one exception being in Town Hall, we have a pole, but in Route 161 they have phase 3, so we would actually try to get Eversource to extend that line, and they may end up doing that for free, potentially. But that's a good point, Kevin.
Yeah.
The phase 3 power, if you don't already have it readily available next to your site, would totally blow the money out of the water in terms of being able to get that power to your site. So all these locations have adjacent phase 3 power for now or the future.
So in industrial areas that already demand three-phase, you could,
Theoretically,
you wouldn't
yes.
have that additional infrastructure cost.
If you already had 3-phase to your building, you wouldn't have any additional infrastructure costs except for the trenching. The town, as far as I understand, I don't know, Joe, I don't think we have any that are delivering that capacity of 3-phase currently, which is understandable. We're not running any kind of industrial facilities or anything like that.
Yeah, don't be thinking of your side lot there, Dan, right next to the vent.
Yeah.
Any questions for Alex? Okay, and here again, I have no problem, and here again, I don't know if it takes an action by us, just Alex, to start the application process. Obviously, it doesn't commit us anything, but it's just moving forward. And as quickly as things are moving, and that's what I think he made a good point, this is moving very quick. So he's been bringing, Alex comes, I get calls from Alex and Joe on a regular basis of something to move forward with, to look at, because it's such the dynamics change. And Alex is, like you mentioned about other sources, we're always looking for that too. I mean, that's one of the things he's very good at. So anyway, so.
Yeah,
But-
the last point I'll make is just between the two companies, they've both offered their services to help prepare the application because they've done it a lot of times, and that would, of course, be at no cost, just to help us put the thing together because they want it to go through as much as we do, because then they get paid for their services. I think, and I've spoken to Kevin, but wanted to bring it up for the sake of our purchasing policy and everything. We've looked at these two different companies. ESC is proposing a lower overall cost. Both seem perfectly competent and qualified. When I spoke with them, I had very good conversations and field meetings with ESC. So that's probably not probably, that is the company that I would like to move forward with helping prepare the application and having a conversation about what next steps would look like, of course, without obligating any kind of funds or anything like that, but just to continue the conversation and get the application prepared, versus me just trying to do it myself, but soliciting their input. So that is, at this point, what I would plan on doing with Kevin and the boards, kind of, if we're all on the same page, that makes the most sense to prepare that application and send it in with the help of this ESC group, with the understanding that if we do send the application in and get the money, and we do have a source of, if we can approve those funds and have a source for that money, that's probably the company we would work with, because they did come in between the two as the lowest bidder.
And Alex also explained too, they've done a very, very good job too, not just because of the cost, but because of the service that they've already been providing, so.
Yeah, the quality of their proposal and the discussions we had, they definitely seem competent, and they've serviced other municipalities, so.
Joe, do you have anything to add?
Alex done a great job. I think we should move forward.
Okay, thank you, Alex. We'll move right into the next topic, so don't sit down.
Okay.
The next item is street and sidewalk improvements on East Patagansett Road. Back a couple months ago, we submitted a preliminary application for improvements on that road. The project had to be at least a minimum of $3 million, correct?
No, it's a minimum of 300,000.
Thousand, a maximum
of 3 million. Their target was between 1 and 3 million.
1 and 3 million. And there's always been a desire for sidewalks on East Pat from the 161 intersection all the way up to 156. So what was proposed in the pre-application was to put sidewalks in all the way, and where the sidewalks are already in up near the southern end of the road, that they would have to be replaced. They're beyond repair. There'd be some road improvements too. We'd have to go a little bit back, but Alex put back together a very good application, submitted to the Southeast Connecticut Council of Governments for review, and there was 3 applications moved forward to request a full application to actually try and get the funding to do this. We were ranked number 2, so very good job of doing that. And Alex, I'll let you take it from there.
Sure. Yeah. So this is through a regular LOTSIP program, which is state money administered by the state, usually through the COGS, with the help of soliciting and vetting applications for this money. And this current LOTSIP program would be a grant where the town would have to provide 100% of the design services, whether we hired a consultant or did it in-house. We would plan to do it in-house within our engineering department, and then the funding would cover 100% of the construction costs, as well as a contingency for administration, up to $3 million. So we made an application, and they have asked the pre-application, based on our POCD, and speaking with Gary and looking at where any kind of multimodal, but specifically pedestrian sidewalks would be in effect. And one of those locations was a sidewalk repair and extension on East Pat, at least to Bush Hill, if not all the way to 161, to service those neighborhoods. So that's the site that we decided would be the best candidate to move forward with an application or pre-application. The COG has said, we really liked your pre-application. We think this is a great candidate. Our initial cost, we said, was about $2 million. That needs considerable legwork to tighten that up for a formal application. But that was just a very conceptual level preliminary cost, so we were right in their target range. Not to say that that's far off the mark, but we knew that that would be right within their target range, and we figured that was an appropriate cost to put forward. So they were very happy with that. So they've asked us to submit a formal application and prepare a formal cost estimate associated with that. And as Kevin said, that would be to completely repair and widen the existing sidewalk from 156 to the cemetery, but then continue that sidewalk at least to Bush Hill, if not within the $3 million, we think, all the way to 161, depending on what that cost estimate looks like. And if we only made it to Bush Hill on our cost estimate, then we could always submit a later application to finish that extension. We just have to look at how close to that $3 million we are with our cost estimate. But that's basically where we are at this point. And September 21st is the deadline to submit that application to SCCOG for their final vetting and approval, and then that will go to the state, and the state will determine whether or not we're awarded the money for the project.
One of the things we've done too is when we've been out, they've been doing some site work there, some very preliminary site work, and they have talked to members of the neighborhood, and they're all very much in favor of this too. And Alex is proposing that if we're going to, as we move forward for the final one, to mail to everyone on East Pat in that area a letter signed by me indicating what the plan is for that, so that they'll have an idea what we're hoping to be able to do. So, and I think that and there's no one saying that we don't want the sidewalks up there, as you might anticipate. But here again, another, being proactive when the preliminary application, he jumped on it, we got it submitted, and obviously they liked it very much. In fact, when I was at the council government meeting, Jim Butler, who is now retired as the director of CCOG, said it was a really very thorough, very good application. Any questions for Alex on that? Because he'll move forward. Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay.
I mean, just to make sure, it is LoSIP, not LoSIP.
Yeah.
Two separate things. It sounds very similar.
Yeah.
LoSIP.
Oh, yeah.
LoSIP,
It's
yeah.
not LoSIP funds, it's LOT-CIP, different funding source. So this is not a funding source that we usually get. We get LoSIP, not LoSIP.
So,
Thanks for that.
So
Thanks,
this is-
Fire
Where
Joe.
does
So
the
wait,
LoSIP
there's the T in it.
LOT-CIP is
Oh,
the
Yes.
funding.
okay, I thought you were saying
The
the
normal
other.
is LoSIP that we get annually, $120,000.
Yeah.
That's not this money.
Okay.
And this would save the town money, because otherwise we would have to spend money on our road fund to fix that road out of our tax dollars. This would be funded through the state. It's all our tax dollars, the state money, but if they're willing to help us with that 100%, and we have to design it in-house, which we have the staff to do, it would be a real big win for the town.
That's great.
So they'll fund this 100%?
100%
Yeah.
construction and construction administration.
Yes.
The only caveat is we have to design it in-house, and if we didn't have
Correct.
the resources, we'd have to outsource it to an engineer, but we have the staff downstairs to do 99.9% unless there's something that, if we have to do some testing or something that has to get, but besides that, we can, and we're not asking for any money. We'll figure it out.
That's great.
Yeah, it is. And here again, I mean, this isn't ready for a vote by us yet, but I think it's really good for not only the community, but for us to be, everyone to be aware of the things we're trying to do to take advantage of opportunities. And these are a lot of the things that are addressed in a lot of the infrastructure things too, with charging stations and at Sustainable Connecticut. When I told Penny Heller, because she's trying to redo the Sustainable Connecticut thing, she heard about the EV station. She bolted out of my office right down to Alex's office to get more on the EV charging station. So anyway, but anyway, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
The last thing I'll just say about the funding, it may help clarify for the board. A lot of this federal money that's coming down is sort of filling the coffers of programs that have existed or maybe existed 10 plus years ago in the state. So you're not always going to see a direct correlation of the Infrastructure and Jobs Act federal money. You may not see that label on every single thing, but you may see programs, for example, like Safe Streets for School. Some of you may remember that existed a long time ago, and it's now it's sort of being rekindled. So that's a program that the state has run, and the federal government said it makes a lot of sense to just give you money for that, since you already have the infrastructure in place, the applications and the process in place, and that it has also created some new funding sources. So it's not always going to be clear, did this money come from the infrastructure? Sometimes it will. It'll be very obvious, and sometimes it'll be the state just received a larger deposit to put into a program that they already have to kind of help bolster that program. So that may be where some of this LoSIP extra money is coming from. I'm not sure exactly to follow that trail, but there are a lot of programs, and we're doing our best to stay on top of them all. There's just between the federal and state and the COGS, it's a lot. So we're keeping our eyes out. So I hope that helps kind of clarify what that looks like.
All right, thank you, Alex.
Any other questions for me, or?
Nope.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, moving on, the next one, the only reason the next one isn't an action item is, we'll talk about this a little bit later too. We've got an opportunity to buy some compacting trash containers from Main Street. They're pricey, but they compact the trash, and the two biggest locations where they have a lot of trash in town are right in the vicinity of the theater and down by the Black Sheep. They're called Big Belly containers. Oh, thank you, Joe. And if we put in two, it would go over the magic threshold of $10,000. We'd have to have a town meeting to do it, even though this would be used with the NIP money we got for the NIP would come out of that. So we'll hold this off, but there's a plan to do this, and basically sort of like a pilot program. This thing will show you where the recommendations are for use, and a little bit more and so forth like that. Joe, I'll let you go into
Interesting enough. So I'll speak on behalf. It's kind of an interesting. It's really from a. It's trying to help pick up the trash and clean up the downtown. Just to let you know, Parks and Rec is the one that actually picks up the trash in town. Parks and Public Works does not. This would help them out because they have all the cans. Behind the second page with the aerial photo, and I apologize, a lot of things are going on. As some of you, but I was trying to put something together. That there's about 12 garbage cans in downtown, and they fill up. It actually might be one of the causes. I can't say it's the only cause, but could be bringing some of the coyotes into town. But I just said that wonderful packed house and so that. But trash is a problem. So when those fill up on the weekends, Parks and Rec staff is trying to constantly pick up that garbage. What the nice things about these Big Billy cans, not only are they much larger than the typical cans we have out here, the 200-gallon ones, I believe the ones out there are like 50, but they compact with solar, and they also, the ones we'd like to get have an app, so they tell you when they're full. So, I mean, they would just ding you when they're full, and instead of having to go back out, you would. Plus, there seems to be a lot of correlation on these because they have garbage and recycling. If you put a recycling can on Main Street, no one recycles. But if these typically the way they do the holes in them and put in the metal cans or something like that, they seem to have a much better rate of people actually recycling. We could put a wrap on these to promote something from the town side, but so they're not cheap, but yet a lot of towns are moving towards this. So what I provided you is just a little, Kevin had asked, just a little documentation. The first sheet is just kind of an overview from the gentleman from Big Belly of what it seems to be our what we're looking for, a little bit about the cost, and some information about just the funding source we're looking at is the NIP money is coming in. We're trying to get our hands around that. I believe it was a meeting about a month or two ago that we took in about $13,000. That was for
12,400 and change.
But that was for
October to April.
That was the winter months, not the summer months.
Yeah.
So, and every town is getting this. That's that whole thing. So, the 5,900 for the ones that the large capacity that actually, I would really promote the ones that actually have the ability to tell us remotely when they're full, because that's a big help so that we can minimize the staffing.
Just a quick question, is that what you're talking about when you say software program? Is that
Yeah,
what connects to-
on the front page, the one HCSC high capacity, the top number, the 5,900 one is the one that actually has the software. So it actually is the smart can that tells you when it's full. The one below it says basic belly, no software, is the 4,900 one. I believe it's $1,000.
So is that something like you can look on your phone or like?
Yeah, it's like an app. They give more literature if I didn't give it in here, but it's an app that it basically Parks and Rec forum would be just would get email or saying that the cans are 70% full or 100% full, and he can send staff out there because, I mean, it would I don't know. Save 80% of the time of because they're constantly walking down the street picking up garbage. These things are compacting. It's 4 times bigger and compacting, and it will tell you when it's full. So it was significant. Now, there's a few cans right at the theater that Kevin talked about, and then there's a few cans. That's where we're talking about by the park as well. But ultimately, if this 5,900, it's what was it? 11.8 for 2 of them. If you could continue as some of this NIP money didn't get 4 or 5, maybe one down by Hole-in-Wall, one down at Cheney Park, and one maybe at McCook's, then you can really start making a dent in these. I was over at Block Island one day, sometime this summer. They're over there now. There is a list of some other in New Haven, Stamford, Guilford. Apparently New London's getting some. You're seeing more of these, and it is a good use of the NIP money because it is trying to address recycling. So it's an effort. I think it was brought up in the past, and Kevin was looking for someone to give a little bit of presentation on what these things are all about, what kind of costs we're talking about, where we're thinking of putting them. But I don't think we're there yet because I believe the amounts to get them would then probably kick in Board of Finance town.
Well, the thing is, here again, if there was nothing to move forward to the next month for a town meeting, so I didn't want to go through the cost because
To have a town
that
meeting.
actually adds another $1,000 to the cost with the moderator and the note posting the notice for a town meeting. So I figured, for October, I'm sure we'll have a town meeting at the beginning of the month because there'll be some things moving forward by then. But this, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood, and we're addressing it because, like Joe said, garbage. I get called by a lot of merchants sometimes on a Monday morning. The garbage out here, and they're out there the Parks and Rec crew is out there on weekends cleaning it up. But here again, there's just so much garbage, and if people saw these, I mean, they're easy. You see it. There's no idea what it is. I think people are more, likely to put it in there. As you know, there's some of the flower pots down on Main Street. The Sue Carmel from Main Street organization said people will start throwing garbage in there too. And obviously, and they point out here too, once we can finally get maybe into McCook's and that, all the birds that go into the garbage and so forth like that. So I think it's something definitely to move forward to, and as soon as we can get it to a town meeting, we'll move that forward.
There's one option on them. It's not even that expensive, but it's kind of nice with all that we came out of COVID and everything like that there's a kick pedal at the bottom.
Oh,
so
yeah.
if you kick the pedal, you just throw the trash and you don't have to touch anything. So you don't have to touch the handles or anything like that.
So
You just kick the handle and it opens the top of the
Yeah.
can up.
Oh.
So it's like hands-free.
Yeah.
That is good, yeah.
So, it's just a nice little feature. But I think these would go over very well. If you start building a fleet of them, I think it would be good public relations also, or public education of making sure we properly, put the trash in and recycle, because that's a big part of the problem in the downtown is if you put a recycling can, people throw trash in it, and it defeats the purpose of recycling.
So once you purchase them, what's the ongoing cost to keep them going?
That's I'd have to check on the software again. I was not the one who originally got this stuff. I'm just trying to give you guys information. I can find out a little more on the ongoing. It's my understanding that cost is a one-time cost, and there might be a small nominal to upgrade the software, but it's not much. So the biggest issue is an upfront cost of purchasing the units, and then there's no real big annual cost. It'd just be that cost of whatever
You could use the money from the NIPS because that's
Absolutely.
something that would
Definitely,
be-
yeah.
You know what I mean? That makes the
Absolutely.
most sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Main Street organization is very supportive of this
Oh,
too,
yeah.
because that's one of the chief frustrations everyone has down there is the garbage, and especially during the summertime. And the app in the winter would be very helpful too, because okay, we don't have to worry about going down to Main Street today because they're only at 10% capacity. Jason, the foreman, can just look at his app and see where they stand.
I just wanted to go back a little in time when Ann and I were sitting in ARP subcommittee,
I was thinking-
and the Big Belly request was made for community center. But
Correct.
at that point, we didn't really have much info, and we were prioritizing, so it didn't quite make the cut, But I'm thinking if this works, that would still be a
Yeah,
sensible
good
location.
Yeah, it's
And
something
not to
that can be
forget them.
considered.
Oh, yeah.
The only reason why I wasn't as big of a component is we have a custodian staff right there. The downtown is no one right there. Staff will have to come over there. So I think it should be on the tier. I would like to see it and put in other locations first, but if we can get a unit there, because my staff that's one of their tasks, to empty the garbage right there. I have a staff person during the day and certain at night, but it would be nice ultimately to have it there.
And once you work out the bugs,
Yeah.
having the one or two to start, and then you can see
Yeah.
how well.
Well, that's why we wanted to start with just the two,
Yeah.
see how that works, because
sense.
you will be getting another stipend from the NIPS
Yeah.
probably in late October, somewhere
Yeah.
around there. And here again, if we can have them in place and be able to, before we move forward, because it is an expense, but if it works out well, it may save a lot of time, and especially with Parks and Rec this year, they have to dedicate so much of their day to picking this up. Normally they have, not in addition to the 4 full-timers, the 4 seasonal, you can only get 2 this year, and with the added addition of the new police station for cutting grass, it's been a strain on them, so it would help them out.
It says it right in here that this price includes 5 years of software, so there really shouldn't be any cost at all until
Okay.
the software might get
So,
updated. Yes.
Can you put any kind of recyclable and regular garbage, you know what I mean, in this? Or is it just,
2 units.
Well, it's
You know what I
whatever we
mean?
pick. We could pick 2 garbage cans. They're very interchangeable of what you want to do, but most people like to put a garbage and a recycling together. But if you want to put 2 garbage, you want to put 2 recyclings, you can build it however you want.
okay.
But is that what
And
you're
this shouldn't
asking?
be, no, but I just want to make sure it will be clear to the people.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the way you
Because
wrap
know
and
how
the way
people
you, and the
sometimes
way you
just,
advertise it, it will be very clear which one's which.
Okay. Yeah,
And
all I wanted
that's
to
what
know.
you're seeing more in the better public places. It's very clear. This
Okay.
is garbage. This is recycling. And these are usually very good about that.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you, Joe, because I know Dave was going to do this, but you stepped up and did that, so thank you, Joe. Okay, moving on, we have one appointment, and Attorney Willetts to check the indices.
Yes, move to appoint Attorney William Willetts Jr. to examine the indices of the land records for the calendar year 2022 in accordance with Connecticut General Statute Section 7-14 for the sum of $2,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Willetts has been doing this for a long, long time, and the cost has never changed, so thank you, Attorney Willetts. So, if there's no other comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Sandy, do we have a sheet for that? A signature?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't prepare it, my apologies. I have the letter for you to sign.
Okay,
tomorrow
okay.
for him,
Okay.
and that's what I usually.
I don't think we usually, it's not an appointment, okay. That's a little different than everybody signing it.
Letter.
Okay. Moving on, the solid waste ordinance, I think we've talked already about well tonight, and again, we appreciate everybody's comments.
Right.
Moving on to charter revision, like I said, I'd like to bring that forward for action next month for appointing the committee with a charge and some initial suggestions moving forward. I know Roseanne brought up she was concerned to maybe get input, and I think that might be good but I think, as far as, if the elected boards, finance and selectmen feel it's time to take a look at this, I think we asked people what they would like to see possibly, but I think the need for it is there. You look at some of the things we do now. We have the automatic referendum, which costs us about $9,000 to $10,000 a year. This year, we had 4.5% of our electorate participate, and that doesn't include the property owners that could have voted because of the assessed value of the property and did not partake. And the same thing with approving things. Right now, if it's above $10,000, it has to go to a town meeting. So we might want to think of moving that up to something a lot more. And that was a long time ago, so 15 years ago. So look at moving up to something more reasonable now, because as we found out, Joe just took off, but he was hoping to get some bridge work done, and he was overestimating. It says it's going to cost $80,000. Well, he was wrong. It did not cost $80,000. As Alex, we talked about this, it came in at $160,000. So that's something we can't do now because costs are just escalating. And the same thing is, things are going through the budget process. We approve it here. Finance approves it. We approve it at the annual town meeting, and then it gets approved at referendum, and then we start the approval process all over again. So it's a long process. So there's some things that need to be looked at very closely that, and I think that'll determine whether it's a long or short process. But is there anyone else that has a concern with moving forward with that next month?
I guess
Ann?
I was going to say, I guess my concern is, I think that if we do go forward with this, we should just pick a few specific items that we want to review, because I don't think you can, do everything. I think you need to just pick.
And here again, once we empower that board, that committee, they can say, no, we want to do this, and they have to have a public hearing, which you'll get feedback from the community.
Yeah.
But here again, I think that's fine. I mean, there are some areas I'd like to see. We all probably do.
Yeah,
But-
I'm just thinking maybe just so that they are able to stay within the time constraints.
Yeah.
And it's not so overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because if we send, the thing is, if members of the public come up with a suggestion at a public hearing, they can choose, well, okay, no, that, we don't want to do that. If we forward it to them, they have to look at what we forward them. And they can say, no, we don't agree. But they at least have to.
Yeah.
But I agree. Yeah, I don't want to make it, like a laundry list
Exactly.
at all. I mean,
It
there's
has to be
some,
limited in scope.
because
Yeah,
overall, I
exactly.
think,
Try to, 'cause, yeah, I think technically, once you open the charter,
You-
it's fair game.
it's fair
But-
game.
But, it would be, the intelligent thing to do is to try to limit and
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
your endeavor, because it could be impossible.
Yeah.
You could change everything if you wanted to.
Because-
Otherwise, it might not get finished either.
right, and that's just
concern.
it too,
It's,
because
you know,
the hope would be for it to, if we empower it in September, then in November of next year, 2023, is when we would, the town would vote on it at the general election, municipal election. Because as Ed pointed out, we need 15% of the electorate to vote. And if we, at a referendum, you could put 10 months of work in, or a year's work in, and if 9% of the people turn out, all that work goes away and all the costs associated with it, so. Anyway, so, okay, and I think you bring up a good point, let's, be specific, and, I don't think that, feel free to send the areas that you'd like to see emailed, me and Sandy, and, we obviously can't discuss it by emails, but you can forward that to us so that we'll have something to add to and discuss at the next meeting.
Okay, yeah, I had some thoughts about if we did do a survey, let's say it's not if there's going to be a charter revision, but what that might look like. You could still consider doing a survey once you've impaneled the subcommittee.
Well, I think that committee was the one that
Right,
should come up with
exactly.
that too.
They would come up with that. Okay, so I had some other ideas, but I can just forward them to you.
Yeah, right.
And, having to do with.
Because here again,
Okay.
it's specified too, the number of people, it has to be between 5 and 15. I think 5 is too small, and I think 15 is too big. And here again, the rules of minority representation are required, and you can have no more than 3 elected officials. And my thoughts would be, since the Board of Selectmen is charging this, I don't know if we should have a Board of Selectmen member on the commission, because they're the ones that, because then you get like that double piece. But it's perfectly legal, it's perfectly allowable, but that would be mine. Obviously we'd have someone ex officio, I'd probably be ex officio to it, but definitely moving forward.
Yeah. So I'll direct some of my thoughts.
Yeah,
to
please,
you.
direct them.
Yeah.
And here again, we can share those, there's nothing wrong with sharing those thoughts as long as we don't get into a discussion with each other. I think if you send them all to me, and then, we can, so there's just one central receiving, because we don't want to have any FOI concerns.
Right, that's fine.
So,
That's fine.
anyway, okay, thank you. Okay, that takes care of our business meeting. Moving on to ex officio reports. Dan, you want to start?
Yeah, I attended the Brookside Farm meeting the other night, and, I've been a little bit concerned that things are languishing a little bit with the Brookside Farm Commission, and we're going to try to get interest from other people to come in and help with things. And seems to be some new energy. There's a couple of people from town that have offered their services to the board to maybe help serve as at least a temporary curator of the museum. They're going to put that on their agenda and talk about that, so I don't want to preempt that. But it seems that there's some new energy. They also discussed some fundraisers and activities that they might be able to do towards the end of the summer or into the fall to really rejuvenate the interest in that property. So I'm encouraged to see what's going on there, and I'm hopeful that they'll get some new energy and really bring that building back to what it was.
Okay. That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Ann?
Yeah, I attended the annual meeting of the East Lyme Public Library Board of Trustees, July 11. It was a lovely event. We had it right outside here.
You even get a box
Yes,
lunch.
and it
Yeah.
was really delicious.
It is.
From Ivy's.
Ivy's. They
Yes,
always do
right.
Ivy's.
Really great. Great meeting, and at that meeting, the slate of officers for 22-23 was chosen, and the new president for the library is Larry Fitzgerald, and I think most of us know him. So exciting change there, and David Jacobs, outgoing president, has done a wonderful job. And following that annual meeting was the regular meeting, and basically it's interesting. Lisa mentioned that library hours will be extended. Now the library will be open on Sundays even through the winter, they anticipate. People are physically coming back to the library after all of the COVID months. Annual audit will begin for them. Annual fund drive will look out for that in August. And an interesting tidbit, and I just saw the plaque that will be placed at the site of the original library in town, which is where the Children's
Museum, yep.
is, right. And there's a millstone there from 1921, a gift of Fred Beckwith, and it's partially buried under the steps. So rather than try to move that and bring it to the existing library, a plaque is being placed there to just commemorate that. So, and I just voted on that actually. So that'll be a nice event, perhaps to coincide with the library's, I think it's 125 years, yes, for coming up in November. So a good meeting, and things are going well there. So that's it for me.
Okay. Ann?
Okay, so I went to the Historic Properties Commission meeting on August 2nd, which was last night. Basically, they need an alternate. So, and they were also stating that Brookside Farms, they also need some members. So what they were planning to do is a presentation at the Senior Center, kind of explaining to the members, trying to encourage and get new members. So I thought that was a good thing to do. The inland wetlands, the meetings have been canceled, I think, the last 2 months.
Okay.
So that's it for me.
Okay. Moving on, some interesting things. We've hired a new Parks and Rec director. He'll be starting, I'll hold off the name because I know he's in the process of giving his notice where he is. So, but we've hired him. He was the #1 choice by the panel, and I met with each of the 3 finalists, and actually all of them were impressive, but he was very good. He'll be starting the day after Labor Day, so there'll be about a 3 or 4 day turnover with Dave Putnam, but they know each other quite well anyway, so not a problem there. Finance director, Ann sat on a panel yesterday. They came forward a couple people. We're going to be meeting with them tomorrow, and so we hope to have that taken care of within the next couple days. Joe just left, but Joe is in the process. They've got over 90 applications for the IT director. They've narrowed it down to about 8 people, but some good progress there. Airbnbs have become a big problem in town right now. We've heard from people in Pine Grove, down in Oak Grove, which is down near the Yacht Club on Shore Drive. So Bill Mulholland has taken the first step where you send a letter to the legal owner, both to the house here and wherever else they live as well, their home of residence, requesting voluntary compliance, and that's the first step. If they don't, then he'll send out further letters out. But we're hoping that will do it, because by town ordinance right now, or zoning regs, I shouldn't say ordinance, zoning regs, if you're under 30 days, it's considered a hotel, which these places are not. So we have a lot of them. They are rented out sometimes in the beach community at $1,500 for a night, and we do get some calls. The police have reached out to make sure these people know, look, if they're loud at 2 o'clock in the morning, call us. Call the police, not me. And don't wait to contact my office on a Monday or Tuesday morning, because then if the police can document it, it gives us something to move forward for. So we're looking at that. As you can see, the TVs are up in here right now. August 17th is supposed to be the day we go active with the hybrid. And I've already talked to Jeff. We're working with Grant Place. We will have someone from the school when we go active and stuff like that to run the camera, so they'll know how to let people in, and you'll be relieved of a duty, which is, yeah, it's,
That'd be nice.
yeah.
Thank you.
And, you know, and Joe made a good point, you know, his main complaint is garbage, and I get the same ones, you know, picked up or whatever, and speeding, and one was, you know, what are we going to do about the traffic in the Four Corners in the summer? And I said, I wish I had an answer for it, because there is none for that. Coyotes, we've all seen what was, and we've had to reschedule your presentation until a week from tomorrow here on just basically discuss wildlife. But there's been some social media buzz about coyotes and possible poisoning. The police have looked into it, and that, as our ACO pointed out, is a deep responsibility, Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. I've met with the deep officer who is investigating, extremely thorough. They are investigating it. It's an ongoing investigation, so I haven't made any comments to the press, although I got a call today, because it's their investigation. They have all the information, so I think it'd be inappropriate for me to speak as to what possibly could have happened. That we'll leave that to deep, and so forth. Some good news now. Oh, and the Route 161 corridor, as I mentioned earlier tonight, they're going to have some sessions coming up, but we're going to post it. I think October 27th is the night they're going to have a presentation in the middle school in the auditorium. It'll be a really detailed of what starting at the, you know, coming down. They've done traffic studies and what they're going to address and what the plans are moving ahead. The firm that's doing that, he's been very responsive to us, so very good there. Let's see, and just a couple things too. Sustainable Connecticut, Penny Heller has done a great job of trying to upgrade us in that, because I think we were bronze or silver or something like that. She's done a good job of, she's a volunteer, getting all that stuff together. And we did get now, Allie Christensen has worked downstairs as an intern in planning this summer. And she's running out today. She said, we got the grant for $20,000 for the Samuel Smith house. And I said, that's great. And unfortunately, she was gone before I could find out what it was for. So, but she has done so much down there as far as getting grants, grant preparation, working on Sustainable Connecticut. She's leaving in a couple of weeks, but she's been a fantastic resource down in planning this summer. And on to some other good stuff. Our Little League 12-year-olds, they made it to, they ranked second in the state. I was at all the games except the one they lost where they couldn't get to because I had another commitment that night. But it was great watching them, the enthusiasm. Great job to Joel Ferrier, his coaches, and definitely his team, and all the parental support. Our 10-year-olds made it very close too. They had a very good run to it. They lost in the losers bracket, but they made it all the way to that too. So the plan is to have them come to Selectmen's meetings some night for recognition. I was thinking of doing it tonight, but the parents said, no, now we got a little bit of summer, so we'll let them have that. Celebrating Lyme Day was a really good success. Not quite the crowd. I think the rain held it back a little, plus maybe a little bit of what's going on in the world, but the vendors did a really good job. We had absolutely no police-involved incidents, which is, that usually we do have a few, though. A couple very minor heat-related health issues, but nothing that was any serious. The concerts are ongoing. Tonight my son sent me, he goes, hey, we're going down to the concert at the beach. I said, I'm going to Selectmen. You want to swap? And his answer was, nope. But Friday night we'll have one as well. And Ann, you were with me last night at the National Day Out at the Flanders School, where the police department and our first responders put on a great event for our youth and anybody that wanted to attend. The fire truck, there was a fire truck, the ladder truck was there, police cars, so that our youth young kids could get in and blow the sirens and so forth. They had cornhole, food trucks, ring toss, and for the ring toss, they had little plastic toy handcuffs, and that's what you'd throw. There was a therapy horse there, a therapy pig, a therapy dog, and our canine handler, Bill Lang, brought his dog Dom out, and had him find drugs that was planted. We planted, and then attack one of the other fellows. So, and it was just a really fun night for a lot of people, and 14 of the officers that were there, they volunteered their time. This was done at no cost to town. This was what they figure. It was just a great event. So I think I'll finish up there. Any questions?
Sounds good.
Okay. We don't have any communications. Any public comment? Would anybody like to address the... Oh, we do have a communication. Oh, for the governmental studies for the, okay. So that's it here. Okay, if there's no public comments, there's no selectmen's response, so we're going to move into executive session to discuss the Hathaway property, and then also under personnel matters, ongoing union labor negotiation. So do you have a...
Yes, I have. I'll see. Move.
Good night.
No, thank you, sir, for your
you.
comments, too. We
Thank you.
appreciated them.
Have a good night.
Love to see government in action.
That's great. Move to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate matters and personnel matters, ongoing union labor negotiations. The board will enter into executive session at 8:56.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we're in executive session.
Point.
I have to retrieve something out of...
So we are, the board entered into executive session at 8:56 p.m. They returned at 9:34 p.m. and no formal votes were taken.
Okay. Okay, and then the last one would be...
Move to adjourn.
Second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you.